Hello, Culture Matters podcast. Boy, am I excited to introduce you to our guest. Before I do that, here's a quote just for this episode. How great are the dangers I face to win a good name in Athens? Alexander the Great. Our guest today is another Alexander the Great, taken over an army in his early 20s, been in business longer than most people in their 40s or 50s have been in business. He might as well have started his business out of the womb. Maybe he did. We'll find out today. Great friend of the Culture Matters podcast actually introduced me to our guest today. Shout out to Matt McHale. We love you, brother. But our guest, the founder of Gallco Properties and CMG Landscaping, started his business years ago helping his customers with their aesthetics and their overall home uh, vibe is my lame person way of understanding that, but has created a lot of success and overcome serious personal adversities too. And we love those stories on the Culture Matters podcast. So without further ado, Chase Gallagher, thanks for coming on the Culture Matters podcast, man. I love your energy and your story and everything you're doing.
Jay, thank you for having me. I know it took a little bit to schedule this in, but I'm glad to be here today and I'm excited to chat with you.
What advice do you have for the we have a lot of different types of listeners, entrepreneurs, executives, parents, children, but the parents of children that are showing signs of entrepreneurship in their teens or tweens. And the reason I ask is because if I'm understand correctly, you started your business in 2013 or 14. You had to be literally 12 or 13 years old starting your business.
Yes.
So what
Yeah.
advice would you have for the parents that are seeing signs of entrepreneurialism in their kids?
I would say obviously try to show support, right? So one way my parents showed me support or my mom back then was I needed flyers printed out. She worked a corporate job, and so she kind of put this idea together saying, "Hey, I'll stay late a couple nights during like over the course of the winter months." And she would print out all my flyers. So like little things like that, showing support, doing research. Um, when we needed to create an LLC and get some guidance, she had like free legal guidance through her corporate, job. So we were able to like talk to a lawyer, show support, don't necessarily push college. And yeah, like anything, you gotta show some sort of support and don't be afraid to push your child too to like keep going or get started.
Do you remember your first job?
Yes, I do. I was 12 years old. I passed out Chase's lawn care flyers over the summer, and my total revenue during that year was $85. My first lawn mow was a one-time cut. A family in my development was going on vacation, and he hired me for $45. And I remember driving my little riding tractor up the street. I ran into like one of my friend's moms driving her minivan. And like, and so anyways, that was my first job. And then later that summer, I did a whole weeding job. It took me 8 hours. I underbid it. It was total of $40. And I was like sitting there like, what am I doing? But you know what? It was worth it for sure.
Well, what'd you learn on that job? Why was that worth it?
It was worth it just because it showed me that I was underbidding it. It showed me what this really takes, all sorts of learning lessons. I got that $40 cash at the end of the day, and I was like, so, I really valued that $40.
What do you have? What advice do you have for our listeners that are in the first year of starting a business? If
First
you were
year,
to go through like things not to do.
mm, number one, like know your pricing. Obviously, don't underbid yourself. Um, year one, you just want to get clients in your door. So let's say like you know how to cut a lawn and you know how to mulch and do spring cleanups. Year one, focus on those two services. And then year two, three, four, start expanding your service offerings, into maybe things that are a little bit outside of your comfort zone. Focus on marketing, sales, pricing, having a software. These are things that I didn't have for a couple years, but looking back on, especially my CMG University students, it's like the first thing we do is like almost get your business set up on the back end with software, pricing, marketing, website before you even do your first project.
Is it weird or like what's it like looking back at the first job of 85 bucks having earned millions from your business now in your 20s?
Jay, it's crazy. Sometimes like I think back, like yesterday I was thinking about this. It's like, sometimes I do forget where I started, where I came from, but in my life, in my head throughout the year, I kind of have little flashbacks and I kind of get reminded, but it is kind of crazy. Like I would have never, like when I was 17, 18, all I was thinking about is like, man, if I could make 150 grand, 120 grand and, do that 8 months and try to go down to Florida for the rest of the year, like I'll be happy. And I remember having conversations with my mom all the time about this. And obviously like literally just a couple years later, like I'm way past that. So it is crazy.
What was her industry that she worked in?
She's in HR, so she's been in corporate
Ah,
America her entire life.
tell her thanks for her service. Culture.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. She definitely, given her job career, she's definitely given a lot of service out. Um, and I learned a lot. Like some people say, like, what do you learn from your parents? I would say on the business side of things, I haven't really learned, much from them. But again, my mom and my dad have given me a lot of support. My mom has given me a lot of business support on a day-to-day, weekly, monthly basis. And what I've noticed by living with her is like I don't actively get taught from my parents almost anything except like here's how to go pay your copays or like something healthcare wise. You know what I'm saying? But what the point I'm trying to make is like my mom works a corporate America job, but a lot of times with these jobs, I noticed by living with her, she stays up till midnight some nights, like working and day after day. And
Wow.
she's obviously a lot older than me and like her energy and her work ethic I just look at that and like that's my starting point, if that makes sense.
How hard did you work in the beginning? Like I asked that specific because we have a lot of listeners that might dream of leaving the corporate America to start a business.
Yeah.
And what does it actually take? What did it actually take for you to go from there to here?
Jay, like a crazy amount of work and it's all worth it, obviously. And in the beginning, it took like I just remember when I was like 17, 18, I finally got my driver's license and I was like my business just went straight up because I could drive around, do estimates, do all the work I ever wanted to do. And I would work so much that I would work all day. I had some buddies that were helping me. I'd come home, eat dinner, like in the spring rush, do my online high school, and then I would go to the dump
Wow.
at night. Literally, some nights it would be like 10:30 at night to hand empty my trailer. I would have to take a pitchfork and throw it into like those big bins that like flippers use. And I wouldn't get home till like midnight sometimes, and I went right back to sleep and woke up at 6:30 the next morning. So it was like stuff like that, just crazy, some crazy days for sure.
I was watching one of your videos on Instagram. What's your, if you want to shout out your Instagram for our listeners?
Yeah, it's Chase underscore Gallagher underscore.
And I liked what you had to say about you went to, if you, there was some event you went to, I think it was in Florida around like ultra high net worth or something, and you were talking about work ethic and playing the long game. Can you elaborate on that epiphany that you had when you were out there, and what was this, if for our listeners,
Yeah,
that
there's
you
a
put
couple
yourself in
events
an
I've
environment?
I've been to in Miami. I think the recent video you're talking about is I was at the Miami Yacht Show with a wealthy individual, buddy of mine, who owns a jet and a yacht, and he was looking to upgrade his yacht. So, but long story short, the epiphany I had is like young guys like myself and younger, right? We work so hard because we want a car or a house or you name it. But the epiphany is like, hey, a car really isn't that big of a deal once you're really in business and you're looking at different stuff. A Rolls Royce, a G Wagon, a Lambo, 3 to 5K a month. Oh, not everyone, but a lot of guys can basically acquire that and have that. So my epiphany was, hey man, I don't really want the cars. Yes, I have a couple nice cars and I'm blessed to have them, but my goal is a jet. I'm trying to buy a jet, and that's like my gonna be my first big like splurge.
What type? Do you have a
I,
vision board?
yes, I want a Hawker 400A. It's a Beechcraft jet, and use their 1.5 to $2 million. It'll cost about 300 to 400K in operating expense a year with a full-time pilot. So yeah.
What is it important to you? Like, what's your theory around being so detailed around what you want and how much it's going to be? And is there a concept behind that?
So I'm sure there is like
Because
a
I
like
might ask 20 people that question and they don't tell me, oh yeah, I know exactly what I want, and this is how much it's going to be, and this is how much it's going to cost. Is that part of who you are as a business owner? Is that a theory that you have? Or what is that?
I
Or are you
think
just like a calculator?
yeah, I am a numbers guy. I'm into knowing the numbers and putting it on paper and then looking at my other accounts and being like, how can we put this together? And I think I first off, I've flown in a 400A Hawker 400A a couple times, and I love the jet. I really like a Citation XL. I've flown in that as well, but they're kind of at the $5 million mark. Um, so going on to that point, Jay, yes, knowing the numbers, knowing what everything costs, and then what I did because I couldn't afford a jet is I bought a jet membership and I would fly on like wheels up hot flights and some
Yeah.
of these hot flights. Like that's how I got on these jets. And that's really what took me to the next level was like when I got on my first private jet and I flew from like I think it was like Chester County Airport to like Virginia. It was like some 45-minute flight. It was like, but it was the craziest experience in the world. I got on that thing. I could feel the seats, us taking off. It was like crazy. And so once I had that, man, I've been locked in. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, how do you describe it for somebody that hasn't experienced it? I know it's ineffable in some sense, but
Yeah. I was just talking about this last night at the cigar lounge to my buddy. I would describe it as like, not like on some like just weird stuff, but like just a feeling you've never felt before. It's like something where you've dreamed of as a kid, thinking, all right, when I'm 60 years old, I'll be able to get in this type of thing and fly around. And then there I was at like 20 or 21, like in a private jet. So like it was like I had the biggest smile. I was just blessed. It was surreal.
for those that might be listening, thinking we're just two young guys getting our rocks off around the idea of planes, right? Like I'm a baby in a crib, and there's like planes flying above me. What's the purpose? What can we do with this? What do you dream of accomplishing with your business, your businesses? You have Galco properties, you have your um, CMG, where you're actually providing goods and services, or service, if I understand correctly, to your customers. Like, what would be the purpose of having the plane? What do you plan on doing with it? What can you accomplish that you otherwise wouldn't? What like
Yeah. Yeah, well, number one, the plane is a business vehicle. It will be used for 100% business purposes. And so that could, I own a couple companies like you just mentioned, Jay. So I got Gallco Properties, that's my real estate holding company. I have CMG Landscaping, where we do design and build of outdoor living spaces. I have CMG, the brand, which is, brand deals, my consulting company, some affiliate style deals. And so really I could use this jet to go to consulting clients. I could use this jet to save myself time going back and forth to different meetings. When I want to launch like a private equity company, it could help me get to some of my, co companies a lot quicker, all those types of things. I could do videos, content in my jet, producing more views, which in return will produce more revenue. There's a million ways to look at it.
Hmm. Now the first business that you started, you were in high school. Were you a freshman, or were you in eighth grade? You said
So
12, so I think I did. I was good at 12. Things started going downhill at 13 or 12. Wait, this is like sixth grade. I loved
it's
my
like seventh
sixth grade,
grade.
my fifth grade teachers. Yeah, they were awesome. Miss Youngster, thank you, Miss Youngster. So is that
Where
around the time? Is that the right grade? 12? Is that sixth, seventh?
It's like seventh grade. Yeah, seventh, eighth grade.
Yeah, I think I was a little older because I got left back in first grade actually. You
Huh.
finished? Did you finish school?
Technically, yeah, I did. I actually convinced my mom to let me do online high school the last 2 years of high school, and
Wow.
and so that's what I was doing. I'd work all day, come home, eat dinner, and I would bang out my little online high school, and I'd pay my buddies to help me with like writing these long essays. And my mom at one point helped me do some schoolwork, so I just passed high school.
So you did. You got your diploma.
Yes.
Well, a lot of our listeners haven't. I mean, we have all sorts of entrepreneurs on the show. I didn't. I got asked to leave my second high school. So you're clearly smarter than me.
Why did you get asked to leave, Jay?
Well, you have to go. And what's interesting is apparently I got a lot of things I could learn from you because you figured out how to that you didn't have to go. You took it online. So damn, that where did that epiphany come in? Oh, let me just do this online and then I can keep going with my businesses at the same time. Like, do you remember where you were when you had that thought?
Yeah, it was over the summertime, and it was like 1 or 2 weeks before I was about to get my driver's license. I got my driver's license 15 days before school is going to start, and I was doing research, and we were in cahoots with the school because I was a competitive shotgun shooter at the time, and so my team and I would travel around like the country and the world doing these competitions, and so we were trying to get like different type of time off. And one of the school members we were in emails with, you know, just mentioned about this, like, hey, our school district's offering this brand new program online high school students. And I just convinced once I saw that, I convinced my mom, I need to do this. And that was the vibe.
That's amazing. Yeah, what I am curious about, like your peer group, right? This next generation coming up. One of my goals, definitely on the show, is to have younger people on the show as well that are doing things or aspire to do things. And like, what what's the feeling out there in that 25 to or that 27 to 18 group? Is it as entrepreneurial as you? Are you an outlier in that case? Like a small percentage of even that stack, or is it a larger percent? I know that might be a bit over an ask, but like or have you just more so gravitated away from your peer group as a consequence of these decisions?
Yeah, I think my like close boys from high school, I'm very, much still close with, and one of my buddies is getting married here in a couple weeks, and I'm the groomsman in his wedding. And my other
Nice.
buddy, he's a blue collar worker, he's a welder dude, and we still hang out. But for the most part, other than my close knit guys, like everyone else is mainly older. Matt's age, our mutual friend Matt. Like I'm like when I go hang out with people, it's usually stuff where I'm like hanging out so I can learn or get wisdom or something like that, if that makes sense.
How has that been formative or to your career, to your business career?
Well, it's crucial, Jay, because one thing I think young guys like myself, we don't have obviously is wisdom. So these, older guys, that's just the simplest way to put it, like Matt, like not that they're older, but they're older in their business career. They just have something called
Yeah,
wisdom.
Matt's young. Let's give him the
Yeah. Yeah.
yes.
What is he,
Matt, we
38
love you.
now?
Yeah. You
Um,
look great, Matt. You're healthy and hearty. We're praying for you.
Crushing it, brother. These guys have wisdom. And so that's like one thing I've noticed is like even my right-hand man at CMG Landscaping, Wes, long story short, I used to work for him in his landscaping business. He's 46, 47, 48. So he just has wisdom, connections, and sometimes it's hard to value that type of, skill set, whatever you want to call that. And so I like to hang out with older people in business because they have wisdom, something I do not have.
Oh. What areas do you service with CMG?
CMG Landscaping, we service the Chester
Sorry,
County.
CMG Landscaping, because there's a bigger brand too, right? That's
Yeah,
CMG.
yeah.
So
CMG,
CMG Landscaping, yeah. What do you service? What areas?
Chester County, Pennsylvania.
And what's so like? Let's say I'm a listener in Chester County. Uh, Landscaping, that's a broad term. Or to me, I'm the layperson. What can you do for me? What sparks my interest where I want to reach out to CMG Landscaping to potentially get a quote or build a relationship as a customer?
Yeah, so if you wanted a patio, a retaining wall, if you wanted a landscape design and installation project, so let's say like a lot of these our clients, their shrubs are overgrown, we would come in, create a whole new design for the property, rip out all the old and install something new. So that's for plantings, patios, retaining walls, decks. We do a lot of drainage work. So like here in Chester County, there's obviously a lot of development going on, and so we do get quite a bit of drainage problems amongst these neighborhoods. We're the perfect people to come in and solve your drainage or stormwater issue.
What 2020 was a weird time. Now, and yeah, well, it's funny. I was going to say it's a weird time because there was crazy things happening in the world. How did that affect your business? But then I just remembered, was it C36 or something? Like you basically beat some kind of unbelievable, like physical, something in a different context. I was paralyzed in September 22nd of 2017, my right arm completely crushed by an ATV, like a ATV. It was a transformational, like I was a jerk in a lot of ways before that. So, and I was researching for this, I saw that you had a kidney, uh the science goes beyond me, but essentially you were close to not making it. Is that the case? So there was like the pandemic going on, and that was that all against your business?
Yeah, so I had a couple things going on at that time, but to make it long story short for the listeners, I was diagnosed with a rare kidney disease called C3G back in second grade. There's no cure for it. There's only potential treatments, and essentially these doctors, these kidney
Wow.
doctors, nephrologists, they just pump you with immune suppressant drugs and steroids, and then they, and blood pressure medications. And so I was on that for a number of years until this, disease basically ran its course, and basically it ruined the original two kidneys I had. And so when I was like 19, 20, I was technically 19, my kidney nephrologist at CHOP randomly, right? It was like once every 6 months we were meeting. My mom was in the room and basically he was like, "Hey, your kidney function's decreasing rapidly. You're going to need a kidney transplant." And this was the first time I ever heard about this. And I was very off put by it, extremely off put, because I was like, well, what the fuck, dude? Why didn't you tell me something? He was like, your function went from 73% to 43% in the matter of 3 months and all this stuff. And I'm like, I was off put. So that was that. And
Wow.
it was a huge, huge thing. All these tests, my mom and I would travel to different specialty hospitals in Ohio, in Florida. And long story short, after 8 months, Penn Medicine finally approved my dad. So it was like, and it took me a couple months to tell my dad I had
Oh.
this issue and if he would be willing to, go to the screening. And so August 26th of 2021, I was 20 years old. I finally got a kidney transplant at Penn Medicine here in Philadelphia.
And he did it.
He donated his kidney, yes.
Man, have you bought him dinner?
Yes. Yeah, that's so funny. We were just out to lunch this past weekend. Um, yeah, so it
Uh,
was it was a crazy experience. My dad and I relationship was not very healthy at all until this experience, to be honest with you. And so God works in mysterious ways. God made this whole thing happen, and I think he makes people take back their words and actions. And so this whole situation was definitely one of those situations where it's like a crazy experience. Coming out of that experience, I wake up and truly am thankful for my words, my breath, and my steps at basic level, like every single day. That's what I'm thankful for.
there's a book that I'm doing a series on the show, like a monologue. I'm studying it and going through different chapters. And rule two of Beyond Order, Dr. Peterson's third book, rule 12 is in book two is be grateful despite your suffering.
Yes.
Yeah, what if you, for our listeners that haven't experienced something like that, that's like completely out of their control, their ability to do anything about it. Um, and they're they might not be as grateful today as they could be. What would you say to that person? You just had a minute alone with them, like you see them kind of complaining or down on themselves or the world. What would you say to some, Mark who's listening to this, randomly, right? Or Sally?
So, Jay, this is a great question. I get asked this quite a bit. And to be quite frank with you, I don't have an answer to those people. And really my conclusion is, and this is why, I would never want to have another kidney transplant again. I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy, but I try and take the positives out of every single situation. And like literally what sets me apart from my peers, from you, from the universe is like I'm the one that had that experience and like lived those days. And so I think that's obviously what separates me apart. It's the chip on my shoulder. And
Huh.
I can't think of anything to say to someone unless they've been in a situation like you, your arm was paralyzed. And so, you know, um, I don't know what to say to Mark, man. Go get a kidney transplant, go get beat up and be in the hospital for a couple weeks. I don't know, but with this particular situation, I think you really have to live it to understand it.
Are you a better person after it?
1000%.
I think the same thing of me. Yeah. It's a part of who Jay died there's another Jay that died that day. Um, yeah. Have you been able to keep momentum after? But Nietzsche said, be careful when casting out your demons, you don't lose the best in yourself. I had a lull period where it lasted for years, really. Um, and I'm coming out of it in like a very strong way. Yes. But what's worked for you? How have you stayed focused and re-gripped the reins of the horse as you go on your campaign, Alexander the Great? I was thinking of Alexander when I was preparing for this because he took over his dad's army in 21, 40,000 men that he had trained. I'm obsessed with that story, but and conquered the world in 10 years, never lost a battle.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
I understand what you're saying, Jay, because post kidney transplant, like you kind of come out of this whole thing, you're like literally, I remember just being happy to walk up and down my driveway to start coming out of the hospital, and then I would start doing longer distances and stuff. And so, and so what happens to guys like ourselves is you have that traumatic experience, you switch, and it's fresh in your mind for year one, year two and a half. You go a couple weeks, maybe, not really actively thinking about those couple days right out of the transplant. And so what happens, and it's happened to me too, is you kind of like dip out of like that fresh connection of what am I really grateful for. So it's happened to me, and I'm not perfect, but I do, just going on a podcast like this and telling my story, it really, reminds myself, my soul, my mind that like, hey man, like that's where you were just 3 years ago. So like let's get back on track and focus and be grateful for what you have.
I didn't want to tell my story because I didn't want my story to become, and I frankly didn't. The audience doesn't really even know. I really didn't even really didn't even but I did use it to sell because I had no arm. Like, and I was like, here's the contract because it came back miracle. But I did not want to become like a motivational speaker around my arm being paralyzed. I wanted to stay in my core competency, which is corporate culture.
Mm,
And now at years, so many years later, I am like more open generally. And like, yes, you brought that up, so maybe I'll talk about it. I'm not going to talk about it with a plumber with 65 employees that's building a plumbing, you know,
yeah.
annual recurring revenue or something. But anyway, like I don't know if that's something you resonate with at all. I didn't want to talk about it. I didn't want it to become me. I didn't want to become like a Les Brown or something like this. I wanted to build my company. And and I don't know what the right all these years I don't know what the right move. I'm proud of the decisions I've made. But it's like, when is the right time to talk about when isn't? And I was
Yeah.
always overly thinking about that. I'm curious what your thoughts are on that.
So I was the same way. So going back to 2020, I was, I was 19, 20 years old, and I had just like my business had just leveled up. I got out of lawn mowing, all of it got out of lawn mowing. We switched the name to CMG Landscaping, project based. And I brought on like literally I went from like a quarter million to like 500K, and I went and I hired a project manager, I hired a foreman, I bought this new truck, bought this new machine. So like literally I was going into a kidney transplant and had all these things kind of just like going up. And I literally did not tell my team until 2 weeks before my kidney transplant. So like they didn't even know. Obviously, they were like, "Where the F is Chase" all the time because like I couldn't really do a full day's worth of work. But I looked at it as a weakness to my team because I wanted them to know like, hey, you're still getting paid regardless. And so I didn't really start, talking about it till about a year and a half after my transplant. And now I'm like on a roll of just getting it out there.
Amen. Now, you mentioned earlier CMG University. Is that correct? What is
Yes.
that?
That's a coaching consulting company. or arm of my company where I help home service business owners, specifically landscapers, grow past the $1 million per year mark.
For those that are listening that are in that space specifically, um, why you? What is it about you and your systems, your processes, your culture that they should take you seriously to look into that?
Yeah, some of the hardest things for contractors and home service business owners to adapt is sales and marketing and software. And so that's what my kind of key strengths are, is the social media marketing software style things and pricing. And so that's like the first thing we go over when you join my program is, hey, we're gonna sit down and document your pricing, your overhead. And then on the other end of this spectrum, we're going to say, how are you currently generating your leads? And so basically, we're going to work from both sides of your company to grow and profit.
What was the inspiration behind starting that?
You know, Jay, I was just posting my videos online. I had a mentor of mine, like literally was like, Chase, you should just post videos about your life. Like people will follow you. And I'm like, all right, dude. So like, I just started posting and posting. And then I got DMs saying, hey, would you, hop on a call? Would you do this? I'll pay you. And so it literally started out probably 2.5 years ago, 2.5 years ago, with a link in my bio for $75. You could buy an hour of my time. And these guys kept buying it. And like, we would get off the first call. They'd be like, when's the next one? When's the next one? And so I was talking to a couple people, and that's when
Yeah, send me the link. Talking about my arm, I need to send you $75. It's like therapy.
yeah, exactly,
I'm
exactly.
sure the price has gone up, right? Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
oh
just
yeah,
teasing, but yeah.
yeah. And so
Sorry
that's
to interrupt, but
no, you're
you
fine.
basically you put it out there and then people just started saying, "Hey, I want you in my life."
Exactly. And then I took the first couple clients and built like an actual program around it and scaled it from there.
What have you learned from being a mentor yourself, a an advisor yourself to those clients? What have you learned about yourself and how to do that in a way where they're better off. It's a great, they feel good about it too. And the reason I asked that specifically is a lot of our listeners may have become disenfranchised with that world.
Right.
Be, like I follow some of these pages, baller busters and all this stuff, and it's hilarious. I mean, and I've had the unfortunate uh, uh, circumstance of spending time with some of these people. And so, like, yeah, what
Who
would
was it
be
that you spent time with, Jay?
better to tell you offline?
Okay. I
But
always like calling people out low key, but we don't have to do it on your podcast.
oh, word. Well, I respect you, so if
Like
that's
if
something you're
you're,
called
what I'm
to, then
saying
yeah,
is, if they're a fraudster, you know what I'm saying? Feel free to call them out. That way, this audience knows the vibes.
word.
But we don't have to do
So
that.
so yeah, my question would be, or it rather is, yeah, what would you say you've learned about how to actually be in that position of power and stewardship?
Yeah. So number one, what I've learned is with the right information, knowledge, and of course, right, execution, you can really change people's lives way faster. Where it would have, it took me, Chase, let's say 3, 4 years of just grinding to get to 1 million plus in revenue a year. One of my students literally has done it in 1 year. I mean, and he flew out here just to be on my podcast. I mean, he thanks me all the time. So again, with the right information and team, you can really scale up very quickly and profitably. And the other thing I've learned is, at a certain percentage, people either have it or they don't, right? There's either people that are going to take my knowledge and really execute on the to-do tasks and see the results. Or there's people that are just going to listen and probably remain in the same spot depending on their level of execution.
Hmm. If someone's interested, they really want to, they're in that space, they're stuck at 750,000 in sales. And when you said software, they said, what? How can they get in contact specifically that and apply for that so as they're not wasting their time or yours?
Yeah, the best way to do that is go to my personal Instagram page, Chase_Gallagher, click on the link in bio, and you can apply to be a part of CMG University right there.
do you gather? Is there are there or is that something in the future you'll incorporate into this cadre of students and teachers? So yes.
Yeah, we have weekly meetings on Tuesday evenings. We have a private Facebook group. All of them have my personal cell phone number. And then as far as gatherings, I've had two mastermind events. Um, I don't know if you've thrown a mastermind event, but obviously it's a lot of work, a lot of scheduling. And so I haven't really done that in the past 12 months. But at some point, like when I buy my jet, I want to do like in-person masterminds all the time and basically sell seats on my jet.
Um, the real estate investments. When did you buy your first property?
I bought my first property when I was 20 years old, a month before I had my kidney transplant.
Jeez.
And it was probably one of the best investments I've made. I'm like some of these Bitcoin guys. I took a lot of risk. My lawyer told me not to purchase this property based on the contract. My engineer told me don't purchase this. Um, but I still took the risk and did it. And it's caused, in the beginning, it was tons of stress, headaches, anxiety, just because it's a development style project, to be honest with you. So, but based on like recent appraisals, it's been an amazing investment of mine. And that was the first property. So like a little bit of luck slash like, hey, taking the risk and writing the fucking check. And then I bought another one later that year and just kind of been stacking them.
What skill sets do you think are needed to do that without losing one's shirt? You
Yeah, I
know,
like
like
that question. I would say, hey, money
look, and I ask that because somebody just less talented, less ad infinitum tries to do what you did. Maybe they don't have, and they're not Chase Gallagher. Like, but that sounds like a good Chase Gallagher is like one of these like nonfiction uh Jason Bourne type books. Like I was listening to Greg Horowitz's Orphan X the other day because he's like a Peterson acolyte. Anyway, Chase Gallagher, series 17, 17.
Yeah, I like the name too. I was blessed with that.
Yeah,
But listen, a couple things in real estate, like I think, financially, you have to be literate and know, your numbers. You have to know. I'm a big guy on like looking at my portfolio. What's my liquidity? What's my cash flow? What's my debt service? All these types of things, especially if you're going to grow a portfolio and take on risk of potential large expenses. Um, but in the beginning, if someone's just getting started out, like know what cash you have, get into a healthy loan into your first property, sit on it, rent it out, understand the vibe, and then that's how I did it. Like, I owned two of them for a year and a half, then I bought two more, and then year three I bought like six or seven, and then you know what I'm saying? So, I think, knowing the tax law too, that's huge. Knowing your finances, what you can afford, what you can't afford. And then on the back end of this, Jay, like just having the umph every single day to wake up and I call it fight. Like you're gonna deal with BS tenants, you're gonna deal with what we call professional renters who say, call me or my team up. Well, fuck you, dude. I just ruined your house. I called code enforcement on you. Hey, your property's no longer livable. I don't have to legally pay you rent, and I want to check for 12 grand, and I'm gonna like
that
crazy.
really happens.
That's a situation I'm currently dealing with. Yes. Yep.
Congratulations.
Thank you, brother. Thank you.
Imagine who you'll be after that.
That's what I'm saying. Like,
But like
oh,
this is the real stuff, right? Like I don't think that I love to talk about that because I don't know if well maybe actually that would be a genius ad. Like that's how it opens up. Just because there's so little trust in the market. I mean, this is my opinion, but you know what I'm saying? Like if I'm scrolling and I'm looking at real estate and I see you say that, what is actually happening, I might actually watch that video. I'm just thinking out loud as I'm having this thought, but like if we can unpack that because that's real. That it's a it, there's a lot more to isn't there a lot more that goes into buying and repurposing and managing a real estate property than one might think? I mean, I've read all the Rich Dad books over the years, and they're very exciting. I feel like I've done something without even finishing the book.
dude,
So
it's
I
that's
just
the
love
same
your
way.
opinion. If you could allow, because you've done this multiple times. So What are the real adversities that could our listeners could face? I think they would really appreciate the truth on that.
Yeah, Jay. I mean, I'll bullet point these motherfuckers right out. Like number one, like on the first property I just talked about, I purchased. The appraised amount came in great. I refied almost the original purchase price right out 3 years later. The downside is, hey, the zoning, the township gets a beef with you, let's just say, or they handled their 15 situations year one and two. Now they're on to you. And so just to get started in that situation, it's about $15,000 between a zoning lawyer and the engineer firm. And then to finish that situation, even on the best note possible, like, hey, Chase, this is all I need is this one document. Instead of making you go get 4 different XYZs, all we want to leave you alone is this. All right, there's another $15,000. So just to solve that problem, there's 30. Then you have a portfolio of single family rentals. You got some in great areas, some in not so great areas. These two tenants over the winter months aren't paying their rents. So you got to take this property manager is going to take them to court. And then I got this guy calling me saying, in the middle of getting my infusion for my kidney thing, oh, well, code enforcement just came out here last week because I called them on you and I'm not paying your rent and I want to check for $8,000. And I'm sitting there thinking, what do you want to get the fuck out of my house? Is that what you're trying to tell me? He's like, no, I just want to check for 8,000. I'm going to stay here till the end of the term. And I'm like, dude, you must be fucking nuts. And so, and then you're dealing with that whole
Unbelievable.
situation. And then he texts you later that day, oh, well, I hope the other 10 properties you own are up to code too. And it's like, I want to rip these guys out of their goddamn house, but you can't do that. So it's stuff like that. It's again, talk about management. I'll take the blame. We mismanaged one of my properties that we placed a tenant in. We did not confirm that she put the Pico bill in her own name, and so she also, on top of missed rent, she also owes me $700 in electricity bills. Just different stuff like that.
Um, how do you do it? What's your advice to those that are in on the entrepreneurs that, how do you stay mentally fit?
I love that question, Jay. So it comes back to, number one, I'm grateful for my breath, my words, my steps. So I could have the craziest day. And honestly, I've had some crazy days the end of this past year with this type of real estate stuff. And really how I stay mentally fit is number one, like that's a baseline for me. And not everyone can say that because they might not have the experiences I have. But there's that. And then I'm huge on fitness, dude. I work out every single day. I'm huge on just positive vibes. Like I'm just always smiling, and eating right. You know what I'm saying? Different stuff. I kind of schedule my calendar where, like I was telling you, I'm in Florida for winter months, rejuvenating. So I come back up north when it's warmer, so I can fight like a dog every day with my businesses and stuff. Different things like that. I try to throw in some stuff that I enjoy: travel, going out to steakhouses, getting a crazy pump in, going to the gun range, smoking cigars.
Hmm. Amen. Do you have a word for, or if you don't, what would it be for like a word for 2025? Something that would represent your vision, your mission, your values, what you seek to accomplish, or what you're already doing.
Hmm. I would be like I would say like I feel like recharged. I know that I think that's one word if you put the little dash
Yeah.
in between. I'm just recharged, man. I was bogged down the end of like 23 health wise, business wise, and I took 24 to like, hey, like let's keep going. Obviously, we're never gonna stop, but let's just adjust a couple things. And now going into 25 with lived experiences, I'm ready to, keep adjusting and going at the goals even harder.
Amen. Chase, I'm so happy that Matt introduced us and I got to share you with our audience. And you're more than welcome to come back again, and I look forward to that. If you're listening to this episode, I challenge you to follow what it's Chase underscore Gallagher. Is that? I want to make sure
Yeah,
I say
Chase
that
underscore Gallagher on Instagram.
on Instagram. Look into CMG uh, Advisory.
University, CMG, the brand. So we work with, you know, CMG, the brand is the holding company, right? And then there's like CMG University. We do brand deals with companies, all sorts of stuff.
Follow Chase. Re-listen to this a couple times, especially if you just read Rich Dad Poor Dad and who knows what other real estate book integrate some truth and authenticity into that. Personal development. I challenge you to do that. Follow my friend Chase, and we will see you next time. Oh, and share this to an entrepreneur friend that needs a wake up call of the real truths that it takes to build something great. And we will see you next time on the Culture Matters podcast. Thanks, brother.
Thank you, Jay.